Okay, let's dive into this material you've pulled together. We've got an article, looks like, focusing on rumors around Apple's WWDC 2025 keynote.
That's right. Specifically, what we might see, or maybe more importantly, what we might not see regarding Apple Intelligence this year. And there are some other related bits in there too, reactions and snippets.
Gotcha. So our goal here, for you listening, is to really pull out the key stuff from just these sources. What's the main rumor?
Yeah.
Any specific details on announcements?
Yeah, and why does the source think it matters? Plus, how do those other little pieces fit in? Basically, it's your shortcut to understanding the chatter, or maybe the lack of chatter, about Apple's AI plans, strictly based on what's in front of us here.
All right, so what's the sort of headline takeaway from the main piece?
Well, the core idea seems to be this anticipation that WWDC 2025 could be, well, a bit lighter than we've seen recently.
Lighter? In what sense?
Specifically when it comes to the big major advancements in Apple Intelligence. The report, and it says it's citing sources inside Apple, suggests the AI news will be sparse.
Sparse. Ooh.
And potentially even disappointing. That's the word used.
Wow, sparse and disappointing. Okay, that's pretty direct language from the source. And it gives this rumor a likely rating, too, based on its system.
It does, and it also draws a direct line, comparing this potential quiet WWDC to competitors. It mentions Google I/O specifically.
Ah, right. Pointing out the, quote, massive new AI features and advancements shown there.
Exactly. The source uses that contrast to suggest that if Apple is sparse on AI this year, it could make them look like they're falling behind the rest of the industry.
Falling behind. And it actually calls this a considerably risky move for Apple.
Yes, considerably risky move. That's the exact phrase. It highlights the potential downside in the current climate.
Right. Considerably risky. That's where it gets really interesting, isn't it? I mean, why, based on these sources, is it seen as so risky for Apple to maybe have a quieter year on the public AI front, like right now?
Well, the source really emphasizes the speed of competitors, showing off these massive new features. So if Apple doesn't show similar public progress, it's not just about perception, maybe seeming like they're lagging. The implication is it could affect developer interest or maybe even signal they're hitting roadblocks. The source seems to paint this AI race as moving super fast.
Okay, that makes sense. But the sources also float a possible reason for this, right? Maybe it's strategic. Something about aiming for WWDC 2026?
Yes, that's in there. The idea that they might be planning to, quote, try hard to innovate for WWDC 2026.
Suggesting maybe a year-long break from the big public AI feature drops this year.
Exactly. It frames this quieter 2025 as possibly setting the stage for something bigger down the line, maybe shifting development focus internally for now.
That 2026 focus is interesting. Is there anything else in the material, maybe scattered around, that gives context for why Apple might, need or want this year-long break? Or why big AI rollouts might be tricky right now?
Yeah, there are a few hints, actually, tucked away in the other bits you shared. For example, there's a mention of an internal Siri chatbot prototype.
Oh, yeah? What about?
The source says it's reportedly getting close to ChatGPT quality, but, and this is key, it's apparently having issues with hallucination.
Oh, the classic AI hallucination problem.
Right, and that executives are apparently debating whether to release it because of those issues. So, that kind of internal challenge, wrestling with something like hallucination in a really complex model.
That could definitely make a big public push on, say, conversational AI pretty difficult this year.
Exactly. It sort of supports the idea that maybe they need to focus internally, perhaps aiming for that 2026 goal instead of rushing something out now.
Okay, that connects some dots. So potential internal hurdles could feed into this reported strategy of holding back a bit publicly. But okay, even with that overall expectation of, limited major news and maybe a 2026 focus, the source does still point to a few specific AI things expected at WWDC 2025, right? Assuming the report holds up.
Yes, absolutely. It's not saying nothing is happening. There are a few specific things mentioned. The one the source calls the biggest and most consequential change is the rumored decision to open up Apple's foundation models to third-party app developers.
Okay, opening up foundation models. Let's unpack that. What does that actually mean for developers, and why is it significant? A source also mentioned a size, right? Around 3 billion parameters. What does that tell us?
Right. So opening them up means basically giving third-party devs access to the AI engine Apple built the models that run on the device.
On the iPhone itself, not in the cloud.
Exactly. And that's significant because it would let developers use the same kind of on-device processing that powers Apple's own AI. Features things like generating images or summarizing text, but inside their own app.
Okay, and the 3 billion parameters.
Yeah, so that number gives you a sense of scale. For context, the really big cutting-edge cloud models, they can have hundreds of billions, even trillions of parameters. So 3 billion is, well, it's much smaller.
Optimized for the device then.
Precisely. Optimized to run efficiently right on the iPhone or iPad hardware. That's why the source explicitly notes they won't be as good as the cloud-based ones for, really complex reasoning or deep knowledge tasks. But the huge advantage is enabling that privacy-focused on-device processing for a lot of common AI requests.
Got it. So the focus is enabling on-device AI for developers, accepting that the models are smaller scale compared to the cloud giants. Makes sense for Apple's privacy stance. What else? What other specific AI features are mentioned for this year in the sources?
So beyond opening up those models, the source mentions two other things. First, a new power management mode.
For the iPhone?
Yeah, designed to, quote, more intelligently manage the battery of an iPhone using AI. And second, an update to the Translate app.
Translate? How so?
It's expected to somehow leverage AirPods and Siri for maybe smoother translation experiences. Details are sparse on that one, though.
Okay, so those are the few specific AI things anticipated according to the main report. Now, you said the material included other bits and pieces too, kind of floating around the main rumor. What else was in there that adds context?
Yeah, there was other stuff that helps paint a fuller picture of what's going on around Apple based on these documents, like the comments section on the article.
What were people saying?
Well, reactions to the main rumor, some folks expressing disappointment based on the report, others questioning Apple's leadership or direction if the AI news really is that light. Just general reader feedback to the rumor itself.
Standard internet comments then. Got it. Any other rumored developments mentioned?
Yeah, a couple of other things popped up in the sources, like the potential name for the next macOS 26. The material mentioned a rumor it might be called Tahoe.
Tahoe, okay.
And also, there was a mention of Apple appealing an EU mandate. Something about having to share technology.
The regulatory stuff.
Right. And Apple apparently citing privacy risks as their reason for pushing back. So while these aren't strictly about the WWDC AI announcements, they were part of the context in the sources you shared, showing other things Apple's dealing with right now, naming conventions, regulatory battles.
Absolutely. It definitely adds layers to the whole picture presented in the material. So, okay, let's pull it all together. Taking all this information just from these specific sources, what does it really mean for you, the listener?
Well, it essentially gives us a preview, right? Based only on these current rumors and the related chatter within these documents of what we might potentially expect from Apple's big developer conference this year, at least on the AI front.
And it highlights those few specific areas where the sources do anticipate some movement, that developer access to local models is a big one, it seems like, plus the battery thing, the Translate update.
Right. But maybe more significantly, it strongly flags the possibility, again, according to the source, that the really big headline-grabbing AI features, those might be held back this year.
Yeah, potentially signaling either a longer-term game plan focused on 2026, like the source suggests.
Or maybe, just maybe, it hints at some ongoing challenges with the rollout, like those Siri prototype issues that were mentioned in the related material.
So this deep dive, using only your sources, helps you understand the specific rumors flying around, the reasons the source gives for why this WWDC might feel different, and it gives you those key details without you having to wade through everything yourself.
Okay, so let's wrap up this deep dive into the sources you brought. We've seen the main rumor really points towards a potentially scaled-back WWDC 2025, at least when it comes to major public-facing updates for Apple Intelligence.
Right, and the sources emphasize that this possibility contrasts sharply with what competitors are doing and is explicitly called a considerably risky move for Apple by the source.
We also covered those few specific AI developments that are mentioned as still possibly coming this year, opening up those local foundation models pegged at around 3 billion parameters in the source to third-party devs for on-device stuff like image generation, text summaries.
Plus that new AI-powered battery management mode for the iPhone and an updated Translate app using AirPods and Siri somehow.
And importantly, the sources also gave us those glimpses of other related stuff happening around Apple. Reader reactions to the main rumor, whispers about internal development hurdles like that Siri prototype and its hallucination issues, maybe hinting at why there might be a delay or strategic pause.
Yeah. And connecting it back to that bigger picture idea presented in your source material, this possibility of Apple taking a, year-long break on the big public AI announcements to really focus on WWDC 2026.
Which sets up a really interesting tension, doesn't it, between the source reporting this possible strategy of a year-long break to innovate for 2026 and their simultaneous assessment that doing so right now is risky, especially given the speed of competitors that they also highlight.
Exactly. It leaves us and you with a pretty significant question, I think, based purely on this material. If the sources are right about the rapid competitor advancements, and they mention potential internal challenges at Apple like the Siri prototype issue, how might this rumored strategy of holding back major public AI news until 2026 actually impact Apple's real position in this super fast-moving AI field over the next 12 months? What really stands out to you from digging into these specific sources?
That's it for today's episode. Thanks for tuning in to Cozy Tech Talk Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe and share it with fellow tech enthusiasts. Until next time, stay cozy and stay techy.